making calls. I've done actually on my own show, I've done 100 calls at a time. To me, I can't get enough calls because I learn so much and I hear so much. And even though I don't agree with everything I hear, it's constantly being exposed to new perspectives that matter. So Brian Stelter, Alex and I call him Brian Super, he went on this Twitter tirade. And you want to talk about a pampered little baby. Brian Stelter, he works at CNN. He lives in an apartment. I'm not going to say where it is, but I know for a fact that the rent is $8,700 a month, just in rent alone. So he's making enough money to pay $100,000 a year just in rent. He's making, $750,000 to $1 million a year. And he goes on this tirade. Trump is being mean to the media. He's being mean to us. He's criticizing us. He's such a mean guy. He's creating hatred. And I thought to myself, have you people ever had a real job? I bet you that there are people listening right now who have roofed. I've roofed, where you're grabbing pallets of shingles, walking up a ladder, hoping you don't fall backward off of the ladder, 110-degree heat. The sun is reflecting off the tar on the roof, and you're burning your neck, sunburn everywhere. Your knees hurt. You're aching. You drop things. Even if you're with friends, you're cussing at each other because you're just so frustrated. And that's real work. What journalism like Brian Stelter is doing, which is even fake news, that isn't real work. Every day that I come into the office, I think, what an amazing job. This is incredible. Now, do people yell at me? Sure. Do my own fans yell at me? Sure. Do people criticize me? Do they call me a sellout because I won't talk about a story they think is important, or they feel like I'm not talking about things? Oh, sure I do, of course. But I've waited tables. Call it, if you've ever worked a real job, call in and let's talk about what a real job is, where you have customers screaming at you. You have a customer that you know that's wrong, and maybe they have a bad day, or maybe they're mad at the world. And what do? They want to take it out on you, and you just have to put up with it, or they'll complain to the manager and you get fired. And by the way, I've had those kind of jobs where I made $7.85 an hour. That's what I made, $7.85 an hour, and then on the weekend I think I'd make $11.25 or something like that. So for $7.35 an hour, people would come in and scream at me and take out all their problems out on me, and I would just have to say, okay, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's great, ma'am. I'm going to call your manager. Right? That's a real job. This is why, of course, CNN, what they don't understand, they're making such big blunders. You never hear me complain about my job, even though I work long hours. I was in Austin with Alex for the Megyn Kelly thing, flew home for about 12 hours. Then I flew to D.C. Then I had to get up early to go do some work in New York. Then I had to take the early train back to D.C. to meet with the White House. I have all this stuff going on, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm so exhausted. Being a journalist is such hard work. Oh my God, pity me. How dare anybody criticize me or ever give me a mean tweet? All I got to think about is, man, I have to tassel corn. You're waking up at 4 in the morning. Probably rambling, but the point is, I've had real jobs. I've grown up out in the country, roofed homes and everything, done all the backbreaking labor. So these CNN people like Jim Acosta, Brian Stelter, they're such babies. And there are people who can't even find a job roofing, and that's what they want to do. So every time they go on these tirades and they cry, I'm happy. I'm like this out here, thinking this is amazing. I can't believe how badly they're screwing up, because they're essentially telling everybody who's listening and is struggling or is very hardworking, they're complaining like they come home and they're whining to their significant other, not realizing that they look just petty. They look trifling. And that is what the news has become about. There's no gravitas. There's no seriousness. It's just trifling and whining about the most petty complaints that 99% of Americans would, Jim Acosta, how does this feel like America when the White House take cues from conservatives, then openly trashes the news media? They're openly trashing us. Grow up, bro. This guy makes $500,000 a year. Grow up. You make $500,000 a year and people say some mean stuff to you. You're crying like this to people who would kill have the kind of economic, and these people all have trust funds too. So not only are they making $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, they all have trust funds. So they're crying to people. It's just petty. It's small-minded. So let's take a few more calls here. We got quite a few here to take. So let's look at, we'll go to Dovan in Florida. How are you, Dovan?
Hey, how's it going, Cernovich?
Well, thank you.
Good to go. Yeah, I've actually worked a few jobs, Marine Corps, roofing, construction, security, at a hotel. So I know what you mean about working those long hours, and having to, fulfill a quota in a certain amount of time with as little as possible, and then having to, do that day after day after day after day. And if you don't, there's 10 people willing to replace you, and, so having to keep up with that. It's crazy out there, and a lot of people, they don't have time to click onto the news, and so when they do click onto the news and they hear all this backward stuff, a lot of times they just tune it out, and that's why it's great that you guys are out there putting that alternative message out. No, I don't even want to say alternative, just the truth out there, saying, hey, this is what's really going on, look, we have, how you guys show everything on camera, here are the documents, all that stuff is so important,
Yeah, thank you. And you actually make a good point, too, which is that, a lot of those jobs I had, yeah, if you get fired from it because the customer complained about it, even if that's a very grueling job that doesn't pay well, there's 10 people that'll take it. Whereas if you're in media and you have these white-collar jobs like they have in the media, Jim Acosta, he's fine. This guy, he's set for life, trust fund, big salary, big severance. If he, the concept of severance, I mean, think about it. Those people at CNN, the three fake news reporters, one of whom had won a Pulitzer and one who had got a Pulitzer nomination, they all got their contracts bought out. Boy, where I grew up, if you got fired, that was just it. You had no job. Good luck. I hope you saved money for a rainy day. These people commit journalistic fraud, and they're walking out of the door with checks for $100,000, $150,000. Yet they're going to go on TV and online and complain to people who are barely getting by. You have a comment to that?
Mr. Acosta. Well, Mr. Acosta is very evil. I think so, and I hate the fact that I kind of share a name with him. My name is I have Acosta, and I'm Hispanic, so and I'm a first generation born Hispanic. Born here in America, had to hear stories about how my mother learned English before she even came to America, how she hates that people don't respect that. She learned because she was working for communists like Mr. Acosta, who like to keep their boot on people down there in South America and stuff like that. Those were the power games from, Russia and America back in the days when my mom was growing up down there in Honduras. But, yeah, so I've heard plenty of stories about people like Mr. Acosta, and my mom, striving and getting out and learning English and coming to America here legally, with the rest of our family pulling together, putting their lempiras, that's what they call the money in Honduras, putting them together, so each of us could jump over here legally, filling out the documents, learning about the history, everything. It's very important to us. And then my father, who is Cuban, basically came over here with his teeth, basically lost his teeth in prison in Cuba, came over here, and I didn't meet him until later, until I was in the military. I was raised by actually a Puerto Rican who was in the Army and taught me about Americana, all the things that Alex is always saying, you guys are always talking about, and the truth, and I always tell people, I encourage people, hey, go on the internet. You can see AJ, with that old school freaking tape recorder out there freaking saying, hey, what about this going on freaking in, the Oklahoma City bombing? Why aren't you guys covering this? Why aren't you guys talking about this? You guys are covering this up. Getting in their faces when I was a child. He's been doing that since I was a child. And so I just give, mad respect to him and you guys, who are going out there. And I know you guys get threatened and stuff like that because, being in the military, you see all kinds of things. And, freaking, I was actually a Fallujah Marine. So when I was in Al-Assad, before we even went to Fallujah, we were at Al-Assad and a bunch of different other bases. And, you always see the little area where the CIA goes and they take their little guys over. It's always dark and creepy, and you wonder what they're doing over there. Sometimes you get tasked with bringing some guy over there. You get attached to that special platoon that basically supports them. But it's kind of crazy, you know.
Thank you. Thank you for the call, and thank you for the support. We're actually heading over to break. But again, another great call. I love the calls. Final segment. I don't know. Why don't we just take more calls? We're going to do final segment. I'm going to take more calls. Thank you so much. I'll see you after the break. Mike Cernovich with the final segment, by the way. Thank you for all the support. I just hit 300,000 Twitter followers, twitter.com/Cernovich. That is double the number I had before the election. Now, I'm not saying that to brag or whatever. That isn't the big picture here. The big picture here is that is how big and strong the demand is for real news, for people who want to tell the truth, for people who speak the truth. That is why I call on everybody listening and watching, viewing, and talking to each other. Start a social media account. Facebook, Twitter, Gab.ai, YouTube, Instagram. Share the links, Infowars.com. Get the links out. Post these clips. Post the videos everywhere. That is how we're going to grow. The demand is strong. People want the truth more and more and more. And, of course, support us at the InfoWarsLife.com store. Z-Shield, we just heard a great caller testimonial. She gave a testimonial. She took it. It's feeling amazing. Right now, it's 30% off. And then, of course, there's auto ship. You can sign up for auto ship so that you're never going to be out of product. Feel good. Support the InfoWar. Improve your own health. Everybody's a winner here. Let's take, looks like we got one or two more calls.